I just had an outbreak. I began to break the pictures. I began to fight with Joshua, scream at him, yell at him. It's like he would squeeze my brain so tight, and I would just have a mental break. And I had these more than once. We call them angry for moments because that's how bad they will get. And I will cuss and scream and fight. And it was a time where he called my mom to see how she dealt with this. It really broke my heart. And what she said is what the Spirit Father heard, what the Spirit Father wanted her to say, so I can hear it. Something is wrong with her. She don't have it all up there. That is why she's the way she is. And I would just cry and cry. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Lighthouse Ministries. If you don't know who I am Deja, but you can call me Deja for short. Today, you guys, we are talking about the Spirit Father. And I'm not talking about the Spirit Fathers you hear with humans when they call their preachers and their pastors Spirit Fathers. I'm talking about a demon that's called Spirit Father. And this one was the hardest demon that I faced with deliverance. This one was the one that created me to have so much darkness in my life. He's the one from the beginning. So we're going to start from the beginning. And the first encounter I had with this demon was when I was 7. And it was my mother's boyfriend, and she lived it down the hall for him. So we was in 2 separate houses. And for some reason, I end up going down to his house. And it's because of the spirit of gluttony, of course. And if you watched in my previous video, that is the spirit he always used to defile me. That was the spirit that always led me into darkness. That was the spirit that he always used to put me in that trap. So I go down to this man's house. Why? Because he had fruit snacks. And as a 7-year-old girl, that's how predators introduce themselves to children. Oh, do you want a popsicle? Oh, I have candy. And that's how predators introduce themselves to get little girls to get into their cars or in their vans by food, or mostly sugar. And that is why I cannot eat sugar to this day, because it's an open door that allowed the Spirit Father to try to come through and intervene with me. So I go to his house, and the fruit snacks is sitting on the table. And I sit there and eat the fruit snacks. And I'm eating them, but I keep looking back at his room door. And I sit there, and I'm listening to my thoughts and thinking, I don't know, as a 7-year-old girl, do I go? And Spirit Father, of course, spoke, because demons sound like your thoughts, and they sounded like my thoughts. And at 7, of course, you're going to go off your thought. I didn't know anything about spiritual warfare back then, about demons and how they can lead you into these things. So I went into his room because the Spirit Father told me to. I walked into his room, and that is the moment he defiled me the very first time. And then as years go along, I began to lose my virginity. Maybe I lost it pretty early. I'd say I'm probably about 13 or 14 years old. And from that time on, that is when the real defilements begin to happen. That's when he really started to get me prepared to become a soul winner for him. What this Spirit Father wanted for me is to become a soul winner for him, to lay down with men and take away my emotions so I will be okay to defile myself without feeling anything, without feeling any compassion, without feeling any love or guilt. So that is when he started doing those things for me. And when I began to lose my virginity, that is when the path began to open. And I began to start defiling myself maybe every other week, every other day. I didn't understand why I was even doing these things, but I began to sleep with men. Well, I'm gonna say teenagers, not like older men, but they was a little older than what I was. And I would just sit there and lay there. And one part I didn't mention about my virginity, I sat there and laid there too. And every time I caught myself having sex with a boy, it was the same way, the same position. Nothing changed, and I couldn't feel anything. And the way I was defiled the very first time, it is the same way. I sat there and I laid there. And that is the same routine he used every time I laid there and had sex with a boy. So he was the center of my mental health. He is the one that created me to have a mental health issue. So people around me would call me slow, stupid, dumb. I was in special classes a lot because of how I couldn't really think, or more of how he operated for me to think. And I just didn't know what I was doing. I was walking down these paths and not understanding why. I'm gonna tell you guys something personal. I had an anger issue and I never understood why. But as I look back today, I had an anger issue because I was afraid to show myself of who I was, because he will always tell me no one likes you. No one wants to hear you. You're too dumb. You're too stupid. You're too naive. So I will always have these outbreaks of anger and irritations and fits. And everybody would look at me as if I was crazy because of how he pressurized my brain. He used my ADHD a lot to overload my brain, to have me have these outbreaks and these anger issues, and just made me be stupid and dumb, and made me make so many defilement mistakes because of how my mental and how he was in my dopamines at that time. So when it came to beauty, he wanted me to be the beauty that he wanted to create it. If you think about a cop and it's a man that probably got multiple women and he wants to cut their hair off or make them blonde or whatever he decides to do, that is similar to how a spirit father works. And my mom probably won't like this, but she was getting used by him. At some point, I had to get my hair cut off for some odd reason when I was younger. I think the first time I actually did get my hair cut off when I was probably like in 6th or 5th grade. And at that time, he was trying to get into the beauty to just make me be ugly, to make me want to be the beauty that he wanted me to have instead of what Christ wanted me to have. And it really affected me because I wanted to be a beautiful young girl, but my mother was operating out of a spirit she didn't understand that she was operating out of. And he was pushing her to cut my hair off, to dye my hair. It was times where she actually cut it bald and I looked like a little boy. And I feel like sometimes that spirit father wanted me to also be gay, so I will go lay with girls too and boys. So it'd be times where I would put weave in my hair, but then be times where I would get a mohawk, or it'd be times where I cut my hair off. Well, not me, but my mother. And then it'd be times where I get braids, so it was like a flip-flop. I remember a time where I was in the mirror and I was facing my beauty, and I heard a thought say, "You should become a stud." And I believe it was something definitely that was attached to him, through the spirit father that was in my thoughts, because that was actually the summer I lost my virginity. Before it was the summer coming up, and I lost my virginity, and that's when I began to hear him a lot more often. And so every relationship after that, he will make me lose interest. I will have these outbreaks, or I will just cut everybody off, just out of nowhere. It could be a good guy. I could have came across a good guy, but I didn't know that he was a good person, because how my emotions will flare up and I will just cut everybody off, or I would become very hostile, or I just become just angry, irritated, and it wouldn't work out until I met my husband Joshua. And when I met my husband Joshua, I'm not gonna lie, it got even worse. Why? Because this specific demon, spirit father, wanted the bloodline. He wanted my children. He wanted to keep the generation of his children to keep going. But that's when God began to step in, and he couldn't stay in too longer. So it was a time I remember when I met my husband. It was maybe a year in at this time. And we finally moved in our first apartment together. Well, it wasn't his first apartment, but it was mine. And I remember it was like we would be happy, smiling, loving each other, and I would just have a break just like that, out of just nowhere. And then you'd be like, okay, why did you have a break? Was you dealing with something? No, I wasn't dealing with nothing. Got a job, we got a house, our bills up. But it's because I didn't have Jesus, of course. But I just had an outbreak. I began to break the pictures. I began to fight with Joshua, scream at him, yell at him. It's like he would squeeze my brain so tight, and I would just have a mental break. And I had these more than once. We call them angry for moments, because that's how bad they would get. And I will cuss and scream and fight. And it was a time where he called my mom to see how she dealt with this. It really broke my heart. And what she said is what the Spirit Father heard, what the Spirit Father wanted her to say, so I can hear it. Something is wrong with her. She don't have it all up there. That is why she's the way she is. And I would just cry and cry, because I didn't understand what was wrong with me. I didn't understand, why am I like this? Why do I do this? What is wrong with me? And I would have these outbreaks just out of nowhere. And created me to be this person that I couldn't even recognize. The reason why he would pressurize my brain that much, because before I met my husband, I would have these type of outbreaks, but not as bad until I got into a relationship with Joshua. And the reason why he wanted to break me that bad, to break him to leave me, because he knew this was gonna be the man that was gonna push him out. He knew this was the one that was gonna bring me to Christ to be healed. So he tried to use the time he had and break as much as he can, as much as possible. But he couldn't, because eventually Jesus came and saved me, of course. So like I said before, is that he wanted the bloodline. He wanted my children. And it was times where he would say, these children are mine, because this is a generational spirit. That's why he was so strong. That's why he was so hard to kick out, because he's after the generation, so he could keep pushing his agenda. So with this, the Spirit Father, he will come at a certain part of time. And for me, it was always summertime for me, because for some reason I was always pregnant around the summertime. And he will come, and he will come with all these different spirits, but it will come upon a time where he'll come out the summer months. And it was a cycle for a very, very long time, where he will come the 3 summer months. So it would be mostly from, maybe it started from like May all the way into like August. And I will have these mental breaks so bad. And I will be in depression and sadness and frustration. He will make me hate my life. He will make me want to defile myself to have a better life. He will make me just think that I am in the worst position ever. And it was some point, me and my husband used to live in Airbnbs. And oh, that was bad. And I was pregnant around my time with maybe my 3rd child. So around this time, me and my husband intimacy was bad. It was real bad. And it got to a point where my husband just would be having a conversation with me. It is 2 occasions I'm going to tell you guys about. It was this one point where my husband would just mention that we just need to have better intimacy, or we just need to just become closer in intimacy. And he pressed a button of anger with me. When I say, all I can feel was fire coming out. So every time my husband would speak, I would feel a fire in my brain. And he pushed the anger button in my head so bad that I broke my glasses. And if you're a girly with glasses, you know that's important. And I got so angry and cussing and fighting and screamed, and just, if you could hear from the outside, you would probably think something is happening to me. And it was another occasion where we wanted to have intimacy, but he will use my cringes and my ADHD and I will scream and I will yell. And it would get to a point where my husband just had to hold my hand or just tell me it's okay. And we didn't understand why it was that intense just to have intimacy with your spouse. And it's because of that spirit father didn't want to. One thing about the spirit father is that when me and my husband have intimacy, he has to flee. So every time we will have it, he will have to go. So every time he will try to break it before we even try to make have love connection at that time. And it'd be times where we'll have to pray before we even be intimate, because how strong the spirit father was trying to get me to hate it, to cringe out, to abort it. And it got to a point where it just was hard to understand why do I hate creating a loving environment with my husband. And I didn't understand the forces that was behind me, making me feel that type of anger and hatred. It got to a point where I hated intimacy. I just hated it. There was like times when me and my husband have a conversation, he'd be like, why do you even hate it? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel I hate it. In my heart, I hate it. Don't touch me. We don't want to talk about it. It got to a point where we just had to stop talking about it, because every time we would talk about it, it would rage me out. That's how much he hates a marriage, because he wants the bloodline and he know if we connect, he's gonna have to flee. So this was the very first time God revealed to me what I was dealing with. In this season, I was pregnant again with my fourth kid. And I'm sorry, it made me laugh because it's like, wait, what? I was pregnant with my fourth child. And like I said, he always came in the summer months. Why? Because I was always pregnant in the summer months for some reason. And at this time, this was the very first time he revealed the spirit father to me. He's a very ancient man, old man. And he had paint on his face. Can I particularly say it was black or white? I just know he was ancient. I can't really say what color he passed, because demons really don't matter if they black or white, they demons. And in this dream he was giving me is that he was pulling my husband away from me. And he was snatching him away, and we was fighting. And he was so strong because he was so ancient and just strong, and he was pulling him away, and I was fighting him, and I'm like, no, don't let him go. And I didn't understand this dream at all at that time. But as I look back now, God was revealing that this is the spirit father, and he's trying to push your husband out of your life. That's why he makes you angry at him. That's why he makes you hate him. That's why you feel like you don't want to be married, you want to be single. He makes you hate your spouse because he wants to have that spot. He's not a particularly spirit spouse, he's just a spirit father because he wants the bloodline. And at that time, God was revealing that this is what you're dealing with. This is who you are fighting. This is who is pushing your emotion. This is who is trying to push you away from your husband by using your emotions to hate him and say those things. And it was so many times where we didn't know that this demon was manifesting. And one word he always used is, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And the whole time it was always towards my husband. It was never towards the children. It was never towards nobody. It was always towards Joshua. And it was because he wanted him to get out of my life so he can step in and control it. Because he knew that he couldn't control it while Joshua was still there. So the second dream, where God revealed that the spirit father is still here. This is who you're still dealing with. And it was a dream that God gave me. I was pregnant again. And I was in the dream, and my husband was sitting in the living room talking to this short little person. And he really wasn't short, but he looked short from my distance. And what I was hearing while I was in the back, and I was pregnant in this dream, and he was telling him, that's not your baby, that's my baby. And I'm like, wait, I ain't sleep with another man. What do you mean? And God was revealing that the spirit spouse is after your children. That's who he really wants. He wants the generation. And at that time, I didn't understand. I thought God was revealing that I did something I wasn't supposed to be doing. But he was just showing me that the spirit's father is after your children now. So since he couldn't have me, he wanted my bloodline, which is my children that I have today. So I'm going to make it part 2 of this video because it gets deeper. It's not just that part, that's just the beginning. And I'm going to talk about how he's the head of the Leviathan. I'm going to talk about the dreams that God had given me of the Leviathan, what I was facing at that time, and the actual physical that me and my husband was facing with this spirit father. And I want to say thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure you stay in tune. Make sure you leave a comment if you're dealing with the same spirit I was dealing with. And I thank you guys for just continuing to watch it, and I see you guys in the next video.